Alright team, today's lesson is on circles. And yes, we've mentioned some circles in our last chapter, done some really simple, brief examples of circles. We're going to get a little bit more complex today. So I'll give you a second to copy down the definition of a circle, which we will talk about in class tomorrow, along with a really cool demo. And also we have a midpoint formula and a distance formula over there. You need to get those copied down, although that should be review as well from Algebra 1. Important thing for midpoint formula, remember it's just the average. You're averaging the x values together, you are averaging the y values together. So don't really memorize that formula, it's the average, it's exactly in the middle, which means add them together, divide by 2. Do that for the x's, do that for the y's, that's your ordered pair. Distance formula comes from Pythagorean theorem, so it's something squared plus something squared. You know it's got a big square root, you subtract the x's, subtract the y's. Okay, so you gotta have those memorized, that'll help us for these circle problems, okay? So I'm going to go right into example number 1. You do know that the center and the radius, this is something we talked about briefly in our last chapter. Remember, it's opposite for both because it's actually in the parentheses, so it's going to be 4 comma -2 for the center. Radius, remember you square root the 16, so that's how we get 4. Okay, very, very simple, and we can graph that one real quickly, just like we did on our last chapter quiz and test. -4, 2, that points right here. That's your center. Then since the radius is 4, you go up 4, down 4, left 4, right 4. And then just graph. Alright, very simple, basic example for the first one. Second one, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Tells us the center is at 2 comma 4 and it passes through a random ordered pair. Alright, I'm pretty sure for our equation I can at least get part of it done. Something squared plus something squared equals the radius squared. And if the center is at 2 comma 4, remember the 2 is the x, the 4 is the y, so that means x minus 2, y minus 4. Okay, so now the question is I need to figure out what the radius is. Well, hello, we need to be kind of smart. We need to use some common sense. If I know where the center is, that's 2 comma 4, and I know any point on the circle. The circle goes through some random point that they gave us. How do I find the radius? Well, we got to use the distance formula between the center and that other point. And isn't that distance formula going to give us the distance, which is the radius? So I got to use distance formula here. Distance formula is something squared plus something squared. It comes from Pythagorean theorem. That's where it was derived. And then we got to use the x2 minus x1, y2 minus y1. So -3 minus 2 and 5 minus 4. That gives me the square root of -5 squared plus 1 squared. So square root of 25 plus 1, which is square root of 26. And you got to think to yourselves, okay, this is the radius. It's actually the square root of 26, which if you get a decimal approximation is just above 5, right? Like 5.1 or something. And isn't it r squared that goes in the formula? So when I square that square root, I actually end up with 26. So again, no radical because it's r squared in the formula. Okay, so a little bit confusing. You do have to use a little bit of common sense. We're given the center and we're given a point. That means you have to use distance formula. The radius, if I were going to graph it, is not 26. I'm not going left and right and up and down 26. It's actually radical 26, which is just about 5 point something. I'll put 5.1. Okay, very, very close to 5. All right, that's example 2. Now let's go to example 3, even a little bit harder. Endpoints of the diameter. Okay, well let's think back to geometry class. You know that a diameter goes from one side of the circle, even though it's not really a side, all the way to the other, and it goes through the center. So if the endpoints of the diameter are that, then I don't even know what the center is. So what formula could I use to figure out where the center is? Use the midpoint to find the center. So if they give you 2 points that are on the ends of the diameter, that means that exactly in the middle of those 2 points is the center. So I'm going to do, let's just average the 1 and the 5. 1 plus 5 over 2. 6 over 2, 3. That's the x value. Let's do the same thing for negative 2 plus 4. That's 2. Divided by 2 is 1. Average. That's the midpoint formula. Okay? So I got 3, 1. So again, I can actually get my equation set up. And okay. Need to figure out what this radius is. Okay, well, 2 options. You could do the distance formula for the diameter, and then to find the radius, cut it in half. Or now that we know the center, what we could do is we could do the distance formula between the center and one of the points. It doesn't matter which one. I'll do the one that has all positive numbers just because it's easier. I'm going to do a distance formula for that, and that's going to be my radius. So again, it starts out as parentheses squared plus parentheses squared. I'll subtract the x values, so 5 minus 3, and then subtract the y values, 4 minus 1. That gives me the square root of 2 squared, which is 4, and 3 squared, which is 9. Radical 13 is the radius. That means r squared is 13. Okay, and that means that my radius, like I already drew an arrow to up here, 13. Okay, so you have to think. It's kind of a lot of ACT type of questions. Actually, I know they say that a lot, but you have to use some common sense. Think about what the question's asking. Think about what kind of formula you can use to answer the question, because not every single problem is exactly the same, like all the parabola ones that we've been doing. Okay? Oh, hey, I forgot to graph these. So for this one, I have a center at 2, 4, which is up here. And that radius is just past 5, so it's not going to be completely accurate, but go just up 5 and a little bit more. So it's going to be way up here, a little bit off the graph at like 9.1. And then I'm going to go right 5, takes me just past 7. Down 5, takes me just past 1, negative 1 I mean. And then left 5 takes me just past negative 3. So a lot of these circle ones aren't going to be nice whole numbers. That was last chapter when they were nice and even and pretty. Now you're just going to get decimal approximations and we'll be fine with those, okay? Same thing for this last one. I'm going to go positive 3, positive 1 for my center. And then the radius is radical 13, so let's get a decimal. It's going to be somewhere between 3 and 4, right? 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, so somewhere in between there. So I'll just go 3.5 just to make it easy. 1, 2, 3.5. I'm using about 3.5 here for my radius. Up 3.5. Left 3.5. And down 3.5. And graph. All right. Not too bad. We've got 3 left. Getting a little bit harder and harder here, guys, so stay with me. Write the equation of the circle with the center. Okay, sweet. I'm going to actually get it started here with the center. That means x plus 2 squared plus y minus 6 squared. Okay, I need to figure out the radius. Okay, diameter is 1/2. That's weird. Pretty sure that means the radius is, what's half of a half? Not 1. Don't say 1. 1/4? Half of a half? Okay. And remember it's r squared that has to go in the formula. So how do you square 1/4? We got 1 over 16. Okay. Kind of weird. Don't freak out. That means at the center, well, hey, they gave us that one, so that was a gimme. That was an easy question. And the radius is 1/4. Okay? So remember, just for the formula, it's r squared over here, so whatever the radius is, you have to square it. So just kind of beware of that. Don't screw that part up. Very simple, just like last chapter. Oh boy, number 5. Okay, guys, we can do this. We're going to complete the square. Completing the square, and actually, since we love completing the square and put a little heart around it, we're going to complete the square for this one and for this one. Okay? And the reason I know that is because there's no parentheses. I got to group all my x's together, group all my y's together, whatever. I got to do all that stuff. So what we're going to do to complete the square is I'm going to move the constant term over. That's always the first thing that we do. I'm also going to group my x's together. I'm just going to rearrange them, and I'm going to put my y's together as well. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging. I'm also going to, wait for it, add a blank after each b term, because I have to complete the square for x and y. So I'm going to have this really long thing, okay? So stay with me. X squared minus 12x plus blank plus y squared plus 10y plus blank equals negative 25 plus blank plus blank, okay? So this is very similar to all the completing the square problems we've done, except we have to complete the square with x and y, which is why there's two separate blanks on the left, and whatever you add to one side, you have to add to the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of negative 12, which is negative 6, and square it. Boom. 36 goes here. Okay, next one. I'm going to take half of 10, which is 5. Square it. 25. Boom. Each blank. Okay, and then you should be able to remember what comes next here. It's just completing the square, except we're kind of doing it twice. Okay, so we're going to factor the x squared minus 12x plus 36. Happens to factor into x minus 6 squared. That's the whole purpose of completing the square, is that it factors into something squared. Same thing for the y's. That factors into y plus 5 squared. And then what I have to do over here is combine my like terms. And actually this is pretty easy to combine because the negative 25 and the positive 25 cancel out, and I just am left with 36. Nice. That goes right there. Center, 6, comma, negative 5. Radius, square root of 36. Don't go left and right and up and down 36. It's square root of 36, which is 6. This actually, you guys, ended up being a really nice, pretty, even question. I don't even have to graph that one. Sweet. Last one. We're going to do the same thing here. I got to group my x terms together. Got to move my 18 over and group my y terms together. And this one's a little bit shorter because it's only y squared. So, got x squared plus 4x. I'm going to put a blank in. Plus y squared equals 18 plus blank. A couple things that I need to explain here. Why did I not put a blank after the y? Well, because you can't complete the square unless you have a b term, right? Remember, you have to take half of the 4, which is 2, and then square it. Well, there is nothing to complete with the y squared. You have to have the y term in order to complete the square. So we would just be adding 0 to both sides. You can only complete the square when you have a b term. And by b term, I mean just an x term or just a y term. You can't complete it with a y squared. Okay? So that was actually easier than the previous example that we did. Now I'm just going to factor this part, x plus 2 quantity squared plus y squared equals 18 plus 4 is 22. So not an even number, but we'll be able to still do a decimal approximation for that. Okay? And I have been getting a lot of questions about, so is the center going to be negative 2 comma 1, or is it negative 2 comma 0? I've been getting this question a lot, and I'm a little confused at the question. So maybe you could tell me if the answer for this equation, okay, this would be negative 2 comma 1. Okay, so I'm confused where the confusion is coming from. Not to use the word confused too much, but that is not what we're doing here. So not this, not this. I'm actually going to erase all of this stuff so I can go back. That would be the equation for negative 2 comma 1. You have to have a 1 in there for the center to be shifted left or right 1, or up or down 1, okay? So because there's no number there, it's a 0. So we got to use our second option. Okay, so answering that question, hopefully that didn't confuse anybody. This is my equation here. That's the equation in standard form. And then our center is going to be negative 2 comma 0. And it's a 0 because there is not any number at all whatsoever with the y. The radius is radical 22, which is somewhere between, what, 4 and 5? So I'll put, it's like closer to 4.5, so like 4.7-ish. Okay? That's it, you guys. That was kind of a lot. I went through it pretty fast. Thank you for watching. Ask questions in class tomorrow. I'll see you later.